Hey guys, it's Road Dog Does Politics. Streaming for the first time in ages, which can only be a good thing. Welcome back to a brand new video. I understand that I am also streaming this video at the same time that Captain Swiss is also streaming a video about this very same subject that I'm about to talk about. So, to all the people that are currently in Swiss's stream, please do feel free to either watch this one or come back later after Swiss's stream has finished to watch this one afterwards. Um, Pretty much like an after eight, which it currently is. Um, so we are on a Wednesday evening, and Jesus Christ has the government. If the government couldn't be in any more turmoil than it currently is now, um, it it most definitely is this evening. So, as things stand, at the beginning of the week, we were meant to be having the government were meant to be having a vote on Theresa May's Brexit deal, which, was, many different people across Parliament like disliked this deal to the extreme. They like on both sides, both Remainers and Leavers didn't like it for different reasons, being that it was a largely half in, half out, sort of half baked deal, sort of the worst of both worlds, where we didn't get the benefits of being in being a member of the EU, whereas at the same time we weren't able to like go out and strike our own trade deals, and like sort of make our own laws as we would be able to if we were sort of out of the EU, no strings attached. Be our own sovereign country, if you want to use that word as a leaver or a Brexiter, as many Brexiteers would have wanted. So this deal that May has brought back from Brussels, nobody liked, and it has been made very clear that nobody liked that deal. And the deal would have been put forward this evening. No, actually, sorry, yesterday evening, Tuesday. Um, it would have been tabled yesterday evening to vote on it for both sides of the House of Commons to vote on it. And surprise, surprise, everyone looking forward to this vote on Tuesday, only for it to be pulled last minute by Theresa May herself, in the knowledge that, as we are all now aware, she knew that she probably would have lost that vote by quite a margin, seeing as a lot of MPs were against that deal in the first place. I mean, it wouldn't have taken any, no one would have been persuaded by this deal. Like, they may have said that they were, like a lot of conservative MPs who like to suck up and, on camera just like completely lick ass to Theresa May. People like Amber Rudd, Nikki Morgan, those sorts of types of people just like sucking up to the Prime Minister. And, long story short, the deal was cancelled and pulled. So nobody got to vote on it anyway, which then um, set a whole new motion of events where we are currently on a Wednesday, whereby enough votes have now been cast, um, for a vote of no confidence. So 48 letters, by various different Conservative MPs, saying that they no longer have confidence in the Prime Minister to be able to run this country effectively or negotiate a deal or, be a leader of their party for the foreseeable future. Enough letters have been submitted. The vote of no confidence is currently, I don't know whether it's just finished. According to Channel 4 News, it's just finished. So the votes for the vote of no confidence, are being counted as we speak. So, as to the results of that, we currently don't know the answer to. Everything is very up in the air. It's a big media circus around Parliament at the moment, as you can probably imagine. Nobody knows what's going to happen. We can predict what's going to happen. We can certainly sort of take guesses as to what we think will happen, whether Theresa May will stay or whether she'll go. Um, I mean, it certainly makes things a lot more complicated than they already were. I think the Conservatives are just tying themselves up in like even more knots at this point. They've just completely backed themselves into a corner, and I think it's going to be very tricky to um, come out of that corner and unstick themselves, as it were. So that's where we currently are, guys. Vote of no confidence currently being tabled and votes now being counted. So, it might be, we might have like a play by play situation where I'm sort of looking at the results and sort of doing it live to you here. And certainly Swiss will be as well, I can imagine. So, two people in the chat and nobody, of course, everyone's in Swiss's chat. So yeah, that's pretty much where we are at the current time. So here are my thoughts, right? I think that the Conservative Party have, I mean, at the end of the day, it's pretty much all about them, and who can get the highest seat at the table, or like the top job. I think there are a lot of individuals, I'm sure we can name a few, that have always been in it for themselves and have just used Brexit as a vehicle for power. I mean, Boris Johnson is one massive example. Jacob Rees-Mogg is another. Nigel Farage. All of these figures, these influential figures within Parliament and politics in general. Sorry, my foot is going dead. Just gonna move it. Yeah, it's just an absolute and utter shambles at this point. I mean, who knows what's going to happen from here? You can predict. There's so many different outcomes, but the thing is with me is that what is the most annoying thing that I have found throughout these 2 years of negotiations with the EU, and I'm sure that the EU have become increasingly frustrated about thinking this about us, the UK, is that like how we, some people just remain under the delusion that we can somehow come out of this with a better deal than we already have, which is just impossible. It's just impossible for us to have a better deal outside of the EU than we do being a member of the EU. It's just like, how that is fantasy. It's fantasy. And again, I use the analogy of like, I want to leave the gym, but at the same time, I still want to retain all the benefits of being a member of the gym. And I don't want to have to pay the membership fee of being a member anymore, but I still want to come in when I want to and use all of the facilities as and when I want. Sorry, in a realistic world, well, in reality, you can't do that. It's impossible. That version of, you know, pie in the sky, la la land, delulu, idealistic craziness. Like you can't have that. You just can't. And some people just seem to think, well, this deal isn't good enough. Well, we have to go back to the EU and we have to go back to Brussels and we have to get an even better deal because I don't like the one that Theresa May has. So we must have to go back and get another better deal. Just on the basis of like the logic that I've just explained, that is impossible. I mean, the EU have stated that over and over and over again. I don't know how many more times they've been explicitly clear every single time. Like, you will never be able to retain the same benefits that you do outside of the EU membership, like, than you do within the EU membership. Surely that must be a given to anyone with a brain. I mean, the sense of entitlement and arrogance that some people have, or like just plain like ignorance of how these things work. I mean, it's basic common sense. You cannot have the exact same benefits outside of a club than you can in the club. I mean, it's fucking insane to think that you can get a better deal and you just can't. And people are just laboring under the delusion that we have to go back to Brussels and we have to get a better deal because otherwise, oh, we're going to be really like worse off and we'll be poorer and we'll be weaker. Yes, we will. Well spotted, because we're no longer part of a trading bloc. And, you can make the argument that we have to leave to get on with our own trading deals and we make our own laws like sovereignty, blue passports, fish, like yada yada yada. But I just think it's it's impossible to be able to garner the same benefits and profit from being part of a a member of a trading bloc um without actually being contributing to it, being a member of it. And it's just I just can't. I think like that's part of the reason why this has taken so long to do, because it's just like, oh, we have to get the best deal possible. Well, I think, to be honest, May's deal is pretty much, take it or leave it, because you're not going to get a better deal. That's like the best you can get. Either, a half in, half out compromise. Some people obviously not going to like it for several different reasons. I don't like it. A lot of leavers don't like it. But that's compromise. You give and take and you meet in the middle. But nobody is agreeing to anything. Nobody is willing to compromise. That's the big problem. And I'm usually a Labour supporter, and I agree with a lot of Labour's policies. But when it comes to Brexit, even they don't have like a stable, coherent plan for what they want Brexit to be. And I think that's also where I'm getting frustrated, because all they seem to say, all I've heard them say, is that, oh, it needs to meet our 6 tests of, does it work for people's jobs and the economy and etc. and wage growth and trade. I mean, sure, someone can fill me in on what these other 6 tests are, but also like, oh, we want to be a part of a customs union, so that we don't have to have the backstop with Ireland, which is causing so much frustration as well, on top of everything else. That's the big bone of contention that just won't move out of the way. So they can, like, in Ireland, who knew Ireland could be so complicated? Um, but yeah, I wish Labour would just. I agree with them on all of their other domestic social issues, but Brexit is just a huge. It's just in the way, I think. And I mean, Jeremy Corbyn was always. I mean, I think he said that he's a Remain reformer, much like, well, that's my opinion about the EU anyway. I mean, it's not perfect, as I've said in many of my videos before. Many people see the EU as like a big bureaucratic and undemocratic institution that just wants to grow and like just become more influential and um, things like that. But I mean, yes, you can think that, but I just think that we're better off inside as a collective and sort of influencing ideas from within, as opposed to just being outside on our own. And also, like, if we'd had a coherent plan at the start as well, if we knew what we were doing beforehand, like, it's all very well announcing to the people that yes, you're going to give them the chance to vote on something, but you need to have a plan afterwards. Like, you need to have a contingency plan. What happens if they vote this way? What happens if they vote that way? Well, we all know what happens in a general election um when people vote for which party they want to be in power or in office. So, first past the post system, if more people or more constituencies vote for one particular party, then that party will get in, and they'll be the government, and the other party that didn't get as many will be the opposition party, and that's parliamentary democracy as it is in the unwritten constitution. However, Brexit is a whole other kettle of fish. Ha 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 ha. See what I did there? Fish. Um, whereby you know nobody has ever done this before. Nobody's ever like chosen to leave a formed organization, institution, trading block off their own volition. Like let's leave. That's never happened before in history. So, and the idea that you just don't figure out what you're going to do in that scenario before you let people vote is, I think that's quite irresponsible, to be honest. And again, that's the reason why we're here in this position. David Cameron, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Nigel Farage, Michael Gove, all of these people, and I'm sure there are more people like them, self-serving, like, or just uh, self-serving, entitled, arrogant, power-hungry guys who just have only themselves. Like, it's just they put themselves over anybody else. Like, it's never the country. It's always their own interests, which is another quite disgusting thing I find about the Conservatives in general, and also UKIP and Nigel Farage just by himself. So yeah. So how many have we got? Anyone in the comments so far, or is it just no? There's only two. Jimbo Jones. Oh, hello, people. Lot of jockeying over the recess. I doubt even they're meant to be in recess like in about a week or so, but I can't see it happening. Like, I think they'll have to have some emergency sessions in Parliament. Swiss sent me here. Thanks, Swiss. Hiya, guys. Fingers crossed she gets the chop, says Ian. EU going, Euro has screwed it. Give it maybe a decade. Design so you can't leave. EU is sinking. Let's jump ship. But the thing is, Ian, before you can jump ship, you have to have some sort of life raft prepared, or a lifeboat perhaps. And when we made the vote to leave in 2016, we had neither of those things, and we just decided to jump from a sinking ship without any sort of life jacket. And it's like, do we drown? Do we try and swim to shore, even though there's no shore in sight, and in the horizon there's no other ship? We're just swimming around an ocean without any sort of help whatsoever. I think that's what happened, and that's where we are currently. So we move on to the issue of where do we go from here. I'd love to know your thoughts on this, because I think there's various different outcomes as to where we can go. So as things stand, and if you can let me know in the comments, like if you see any results coming in from the no confidence vote, I'd appreciate it, so we can sort of work through it together. If May loses the vote of no confidence, she's basically a lame duck caretaker in chief prime minister, pretty much, and it will open the doors for a leadership contest, which I feel will inevitably lead to a general election. The other option, of course, that also leads to the same result of a general election, it needs to be a parliamentary vote of no confidence, whereby Labour and the opposition benches also table a vote of no confidence. And in that way, the whole House can make their decision, which again will lead to a leadership contest and or a general election. Now, as far as I know, Theresa May has already said today to her cabinet / MPs, I'm not quite sure whether it was a announcement to the 1922 committee, but she's apparently already said that she will not be the person to lead the Conservatives into the next general election, which means I believe she's already made that decision that she's not going to have that longevity of, carrying on as Prime Minister until what it would be 2022. So the last election was last year, so 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Yeah, 2022, yeah. So that's when, if, Parliament carries on without any, well, I mean, there's bound to be another general election before 2022 when the next one is, conventionally due. But I think it'll be well before then, based on the absolute shit show drama that is currently occurring within Westminster at the current time. I mean, it's. I feel like we're like the date for us leaving the EU on March 29th next year. I mean, this is just causing them so many problems. If they have a leadership election or a leadership contest, I mean, like before the year is out, I mean, they don't have any time to renegotiate this deal. So I think that one of their only options I is to well extend Article 50 and give them more time. But I feel like also the EU won't. They're not going to give the Conservatives an extension to Article 50 if all they're going to do is just sit around and argue about, whether or not they can get a better deal, which they won't anyway, because the EU have already been explicit in saying that this is the only deal that you're going to get. I don't feel there's going to be any further concessions made from the EU's point of view. This again, I have to keep stressing that this is the only deal on the table, the only negotiated deal that they are going to get. There is no feasible alternative other than to crash out without a deal or to basically stay in the EU. And I think Theresa May has also said that if she leaves as PM, if she loses the vote, then it's either no deal or no Brexit. And I know which one I'd rather, to be honest. I'd much rather stay in the EU, or like even have a people's vote on it. I know some people are against that, but I mean, a people's vote. I mean, like, I think I'm coming around to the idea of a people's vote. Before I was sort of like in the middle, because I felt like if we had a people's vote, it in a way felt like it was saying, well, I'm not happy with the vote that we had 2 years ago, so let's have another vote until we get the right answer. Which, if we did have a second referendum or a people's vote, as they're saying, what are people so afraid of? If they're so confident that people will vote the same way again and go, well, let's have a no deal then fine, vote to be poorer. And then that's the end of it. And it'll be really shit for like a long time probably. But that'll be that, and things will get worse before they get better. But I'm not in control. I don't make the decisions. It's what the majority wants, and that's democracy. So at the end of the day, democracy plus more democracy doesn't equal a negative, in my view. It's like it's just a continuation of democracy. So yeah, that's basically what I think. So what have we got in the comments for people watching? Yay! Nowhere near as much as Swiss's audience, but there you go. So who do we have in the comments? Just get comments up. Ooh. So Ian says Jimbo floating brass infinite regress. We've had a people's vote. Nog in the Nog says the EU wants to punish the UK and send a message to member states. This is what happens if you try to leave. Jimbo Jones says we're a flat fiat currency, a flat currency. Do you mean with our own central bank we can't go broke? You have bank. Oh, okay. Let's go with American. If you're skint, you shop at Aldi. If you're wealthy, Waitrose. Okay, that's a generalization, but chlorine cooks is a choice, and choice should be there. The life raft is WTO rules. There's nothing to fear except fear itself. I think May will win, sadly. Floating currency. Oh. Okay. So what was I saying? Yeah, I was talking to my friend on Facebook about this. And he was saying, well, I sort of argued that if we had a people's vote, it would sort of be a betrayal of trust, and like if people ended up voting or like we stay in, then it would mean that it was sort of going back on what people originally voted for. And I was like, what did I say? I said, as I see it, stopping Brexit would be seen by many as a betrayal of the original vote and trust in the government, and trust in the government would disappear completely. And he replied saying, one of the key things about a democracy is the ability to change your mind. Leave voters were promised something that is quite clear is not possible. The people deserve a chance to choose whether they want no deal or to stay. Why would we go through with something, brackets, no deal, that is quite clear nobody wants, except rich Brexiteers like Jacob Rees-Mogg, who won't be affected? I think that part is true, that, you know, very wealthy, you know, hedge fund owners or people who have vested interests in the stock market, or, as I said, hedge funds, who will profit directly from a no-deal Brexit, they won't be affected by this. They'll, you know, remain wealthy, remain, you know, safe and secure, whereas other people who they persuaded that their lives would change for the better and that we'd have more money, we'd have a rebate, we'd have more money for the NHS, more jobs, higher wage growth, etc. Which I feel like is just like that's just a fantasy story. Like I just don't think that's going to happen realistically. I just don't see it happening. With a no deal, you're significantly reducing your chances of, you know, making things better for yourself. You're just like cutting off all ties and just cutting off all support. And, you know, we can already see the pound dropping in its value. So I'm not seeing, like, in terms of economics or like forecasts. I mean, I'm not saying like put all your stock into forecasting, but like from what I'm seeing, I just don't see it as anything positive coming out of this. So yeah, I mean, with regard to a people's vote, as I said, I'm sort of coming round to it slowly because I mean, if people are so confident that, you know, people who voted for Brexit 2 years ago are going to vote the same way again and vote no deal, then fine, you know, have the vote and see what happens. That's the whole point of democracy. Like democracy doesn't stop like on the day after Brexit happened. Like you're still entitled to an opinion. You're still entitled to like 2 years down the line, see where we've ended up, and you know, do you want another say? Do you want a final chance to like you know now that you can see things clearer and know you know what's going to happen and like it's written down on paper, the actual deal that we've got is written down on paper as a document. Would you like to know what that is, and would you like to vote on it, or would you prefer to have just walk away with no deal and go on to WTO rules, or would you rather vote for this deal and sort of have a semi relationship with the EU? I mean, it's not great, but you know, it's something. Or would you prefer to remain? I'm not saying those would be the three options. It might be only two options, but you know, at least give the people a final say. I mean, that is the definition of democracy. Technically, you're giving the vote back to the people, and you know, if you're so certain that you know people will want to vote the same way and just you know get on with it and go for a no deal, you know, personally, I think that would be detrimental. Other people might disagree, but if you want to vote that way, vote and you know let's crash out by all means, by all means. I might be disgruntled, more than disgruntled about it. I might be upset, I might be angry with a lot of people, but at the end of the day we had two chances, and you know if it goes to no deal, those people would have had their say at the end of the day. So I don't know what you're so mad about. um so yeah, so what are we saying in the comments? Oh, my sister's in the chat. Hello. So, live news. Apparently the Prime Minister has been told what the result of the no confidence vote is. So, let's see. A referendum is just a way of making folk think that they really matter in a parliamentary democracy. Well, I mean, that's what a plebiscite is it not? Just giving people a chance to vote. I mean that's sort of like what happens every 5 years. You know, they vote in a government, and then 5 years later, if they change their mind, they vote again. And as it goes on every 5 years, you know, it might be Labour, it might be Conservative, it might be a coalition, but you know, it's always it always goes back to the people. I mean, we don't run the government based on referendums. We run it on a parliamentary constitution, and the government in charge will run the country based on, you know, their policies that have apparently been approved by the people that voted for them. So, I know a referendum isn't an election technically, but they've got very similar features. Um, So, I mean, I know I'm comparing apples to oranges in a way. You're right, but you know, again, they're quite similar in, you know, in terms of getting people's perspectives on and opinions on, you know, policy and politics as a whole. Um, so yes. Anyway, um, that's pretty much all what I wanted to talk about. I'm just gonna have a quick look up just to see if there's been any progress with the vote. Can anyone let me know in the comments if there's been any sort of news so far? Because I've pretty much said all I wanted to say on on this. Basically, the government is a pile of shit, and it has been for 2 years. I mean, if it wouldn't be so bad if if they had been over the past 8 years had been relatively good with the economy and put a lot of funding into public services, and the NHS was being looked after, social services was being invested into, homelessness was going down, education was improving, reforms within public health, etc. I mean, if that all that was happening across 8 years, perhaps it wouldn't be so bad, and people wouldn't have such a detrimental negative view of this whole government. But because all of those things have been getting worse, um, and add on to that the absolute shambles that Brexit is at the moment. I mean, you can't deny. I mean, like, I heard Michael Gove on Channel 4, like, was it BBC, tell Laura Kuenssberg, like, just deny flat out that this wasn't chaos twice. And she's like, this isn't chaos? He's like, no, no. And other MPs are going, I don't know what you're talking about. In the face of like, oh, isn't this just like a big mess? Like, just the worst constitutional crisis in the history of the UK? What on earth do you mean? I don't know what you mean. And Amber Rudd as well, sticking up, as always, sticking up for Theresa May, saying, "Well, yes, I put my vote in for her, and I'm giving her the thumbs up, and I think everyone else should do the same and get behind the PM for a better deal and a good deal, and it's the way forward." They're just all deluding themselves extremely. They're just the epitome of the Westminster bubble. So whilst I've been wittering on, I'm just going to look on Twitter, because usually that's a good source of gossip. Right. Oops. Theresa May speculated to have 200 votes. She was reported to be looking pretty happy when returning to Downing Street. The problem with the referendum was Remain was known. Leave was open to interpretation. Well, exactly, yes. So yeah, Remain is a known, whereas Leave was a unknown. That's what I'm saying. And also, let's take into account the margin of error. It was 48-52, 4% difference. Complete and utter divide, split down the middle. I mean, you're always going to have problems when, it's the same thing with Theresa May and her tiny majority in Parliament. I mean, she can barely get anything through. Like, the things that she can get through are only just passed with like a tiny majority. So, like, things like that are always going to be controversial. So that's another difficulty I see. I mean, like, it's just such a small margin that it's so divisive that people are never going to agree. People are just gonna all they're gonna do is just dig their heels in, become more entrenched, because it's such a big issue at the end of the day. I mean, people aren't prepared to just sit back and accept, like, oh, okay, we'll just have to go on to no deal, WTO rules, fine. Like, of course, it's not going to be just fine, is it? It's a serious issue. You can't just be like, oh, just accept it. Oh, begrudgingly accept it. I mean, like, if we'd have had this referendum and about 2 years ago when Remain had won, I mean, Jacob Rees-Mogg was making this argument on Channel 4 on Sunday when he said, oh, if Remain had won, Remain now wouldn't be arguing, like, well, what sort of Remain should we have? Should we have a soft Remain or a hard Remain? I was like, well, that is such a redundant statement, and that's such a redundant argument, because if we've already negotiated a deal being part of the European Union, which was like in the 70s. We've negotiated our position already, so we've already cemented ourselves as a member of one of the 27 countries that are part of the EU. So it's not a case of like, well, should I change my position being on the table? Like, how should I contribute more to being a member? Like, or having a harder remain. I want to remain more in the EU. I want to be more of a member. Well, how do you do that? I mean, you're basically having the same conversation going. It's just pointless. So that's just a silly thing to say. Whereas leaving, that's never happened before. It's a completely new set of rules. What do we do? How do we negotiate? Where do we want ourselves to go? What direction are we going in? Who do we want to lead us? And what will our relationship be like in the future with the EU? Those are a whole different set of questions, and it's completely different. So, Jacob Rees-Mogg, I'm sorry, but that's such an ignorant thing to say. About like, oh, should we have a soft remain or hard remain? Oh, no, that's just a stupid thing to say. So I'm just going down my Twitter feed. Right. Dum 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 dum. I can't see any news so far. I'll click on that hashtag confidence vote and see what people are saying. Actually, I might share my screen with you. I don't like the idea that we should go through with Brexit to avoid a right-wing backlash. They are there anyway. Pandering to them doesn't weaken them. Exactly. 4 minutes to go, apparently. Oh, they're setting up the microphone. Oh, should we stick around to find out what she says? LBC says the result is expected at 9 p.m. Click below to hear the announcement live. Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you guys. So just so we can watch it. I hope I'm in time. Oh my gosh. It's exciting, isn't it? And then we can have a screen play-by-play reaction of what happens. Let's look at channel 4. I prefer looking at channel 4. They're a lot better at investigative reporting, sorry. Watch live. Theresa May faces no confidence vote. Hands come out of the pocket, but not with anything in it. Oh, Jon Snow is commentating, everyone. Very funny. This is very interesting. We're looking at the wallpaper. It's a kind of damask. Good old Jon Snow. Oh, sorry. The damask wallpaper. Oh. I'd like to thank here we are. For their help, especially by Carol Gillen and Charles Walker. The result of the ballot held this evening is that the parliamentary party does have confidence. Oh my God! Oh my God! She's staying in. She's staying in, guys. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Look at all those happy Tory faces. Look at those happy Tory faces and just cry. sit there and cry.
Does have confidence in May as leader of the Conservative Party. The number of votes cast in favour of having confidence in Theresa May was 200, and against was 117. Under the rules set out in the constitution of the Conservative Party, no further confidence vote can take place.
So that's about 83 votes in it. Well, there you go. Goodbye. Yeah, 83 votes.
For Theresa May, 117 or against her.
Well, that decides the issue of her leadership.
You've been seen alternative.
We wanted to give the party an opportunity to decide some very serious issues, and those issues are now on the table and are exactly the same as they were before today. And for 117 of my colleagues to express no confidence in the Prime Minister is quite a serious blow. And it decides we will all pledge our leadership to her, our loyalty to her, and wish her well.
Pledge your leadership.
The message is she's got to bring back a very, very substantial change in the deal.
But you can't do that. I've already said this explicitly. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you can't do that. You can't get a physically better deal than the one you already have.
Prime Minister.
Well, I'm pleased for her, but the truth of the matter is, as well, it does, as Bernard said, point to the fact there was a very substantial rebellion within the Tory ranks. But, the payroll vote is in the region of 140, so a clear majority of Conservative backbenchers did not vote confidence this evening, and that is a mark of real concern.
Let's cut to the quick. This occurred because of the deal she offered the House. The House have not punished her for the deal. The House has, in fact, kept her as their Prime Minister. They clearly do see her as the agent of that deal, and that deal must go through.
I don't think that's right. I mean, the truth of the matter is, obviously, the deal will be revised. That was something that she talked about at length in the 22, and I really do sincerely hope that she is capable of bringing about the legally binding changes which are required. She was emphatic it will need to be more than just words.
You can't have legally bound changes unless you reopen the negotiations.
Well, that was the question I asked.
There are no renegotiations possible. Europe has said no.
Well, let's deal with what comes back rather than hypotheticals. But it has to be said, unless there are substantive legal changes to this deal, then I think it's very unlikely it will win support from either myself or a significant number of Conservative backbenchers.
And very briefly,
part of the problem here is those of us that have been agitating for a clean Brexit, a clear Brexit, we represent the 52%, the majority of the population. Most of the Commons voted Remain. They don't represent the majority of this country, and there's been this constant tension between how the people voted and what the politicians want. And we're not going to let the politicians steal the result of the referendum from the British people.
Bernard Jenkins,
Thank you very much.
Thank you both very warmly. Kristen, there you are in the lobby.
Wow. Let's go back to the lobby. Michael Crick.
MP. Michael, what does it mean? It's a pretty big vote and no abstention.
Well, I suspect it's enough for Theresa May to stay on, but it is not a good result. The magic thing is she's reached that 200 mark, which is incidentally one vote more than she got in the last ballot in the Conservative leadership election 2 years ago when she got 199.
Well, it's only one.
More popular than she was.
Within the party.
Given out and so on. Percentage-wise, it's interesting. 63%. So more than a third of the party have voted against her. Margaret Thatcher stood down in 1990 when she only got 57%. So there's the comparison there. On the other hand, John Major, he got a bit more, and he got 66%.
Right. Okay.
200 MPs. It's probably enough to stay, but it's not.
I'm gonna leave it.
Where does this leave your party? Totally divided?
Well, in a world where 52-48 qualifies as absolute victory, 67% seems like an absolutely barnstorming result. I think the Prime Minister has been.
This is a shameful day for your party, though, isn't it?
Thank you, Christian, for saying that. Thank you.
On that, we agree absolutely. I cannot believe that colleagues saw merit in asking the parliamentary party to do what has been done today. But we voted, the Prime Minister's got a result, and just as those who are members of the ERG have been saying to us that we must respect the result of the vote from 2 years ago, I hope that they will now respect the result of this vote, and that they will find a way of rallying around her so that we can move the whole Brexit process forward.
63% for, apparently, and 37 against, as far as the numbers are concerned. I mean, isn't the truth, though, that yes, she survived it, but she still has all the same problems, all the same parliamentary arithmetic, and she's been a little bit humiliated. I mean, winning tonight does not leave her boosted. It still leaves her.
So stop grandstanding, please. Stop acting as if this is a massive success. It's really not.
I'm not sure that her position.
But when she goes to Europe,
well, maybe, but that was the folly of the decision that the ERG and those that support them took in triggering this leadership election. But look, it's been done. The result has been had, and everybody surely knows. It was clear in the 22 meeting earlier on. The only route forward from now is everybody stays in their trenches. Nothing changes. If people are willing to now get out of their trenches, respect the result of the vote that's been had.
Here we go. Respect the result.
Around which we can all rally, then there's a route forward. If that doesn't happen, then this could be the first of a series of conflict votes, and the country will look on in utter dismay.
They already are, mate. They already are.
Although officially there can't be another confidence vote, can't be another certified confidence vote for another year now. So that is a game for Theresa May. And we've had all this speculation for more than a year that there was going to be one of these conference votes. It's now happened. It's now off the agenda for a year. When it comes to negotiating in Europe, sure, on the one hand, the people she's negotiating with will know that that she is sort of secure. On the other hand, they'll also be aware that more than a third of her parliamentary party have no confidence in her, and that will make them ask, well, is there any point in negotiating when she has lost so much of
Just a brief note, we've got to go, but I mean, are we closer, do you think, to another referendum?
I don't think so, because I think the parliamentary process that stands between tonight and a referendum is so enormous, and it took 348 days to get the EU withdrawal bill through this place. If you think a bill for a referendum would be any less contentious, then I think you're in cow cuckoo land. But I do think tonight changes one key thing. The DUP can no longer assume that we're going to change our leader, and that, I think, makes for some very interesting conversations between the PM and the DUP in the days ahead.
Thank you both very much. John?
Right, I'm going to leave it there as they're leaving the lobby. Hello, back again, everyone. So, yeah, you've all heard the news now, and we're all on the same page. There are about 83 votes in it. Theresa May is remaining the PM and the leader of the Conservative Party. After a vote of no confidence, she won the vote by 200 votes to 117. So again, 83 votes in it. She remains leader of the Tory party as of now, and they can no longer have the Conservative Party as of today can no longer have a no confidence vote for another year. So that's as it stands. I genuinely thought that she was going to lose that vote, but it looks like enough of her MPs got behind her at the end of the day. I mean, in a way, I'm not surprised because a lot of MPs I've heard say that if they were to vote no confidence in her, it would just lead to more sort of unnecessary chaos than they already currently have, which I think is sort of a practical thing to do, because you don't want to get yourself in more mess than you're already in. I mean, we're already pretty much up to here in terms of like a Brexit mire, and having a vote of no confidence, which Theresa May would lose, we'd then get up to here. So I think, yeah, I mean, if I were a Conservative, I'd probably vote the same way. I'd probably vote like, yes, I have confidence in her. So yeah, in that sense, I'm not surprised. So yeah, that's the result, folks. What are your guys' views on it? So damn no. 1790 suits her well. Remember, Margaret Thatcher resigned days after winning her no confidence vote. What are the numbers? Hang Theresa May, says New Left Voice. Well, I'm a humanist at heart, so I don't really. I mean, like I was saying this earlier, like on a human level, like on a human being, personal, like level. And I think Jeremy Corbyn has said this, I think on Good Morning Britain or something, where he was being interviewed by Philip Schofield. Like, do you feel sorry for Theresa May? And he was like, on a human level, yes, because I think that she's probably absolutely exhausted. And, you know, she looks really tired and, you know, she's doing probably the best that she can in the situation that she's in. I don't think if anyone else was put into this position, even if it was a bloke, like another Tory MP, like another person from the cabinet, if it was Amber Rudd, if it was Boris Johnson, I don't know if it was Michael Gove, I think if any of those people were in the same position that Theresa May is in currently, they would do no better of a job than what she has done. They would not have brought back a better deal than what Theresa May is. They'd have done exactly the same. This would have worked out exactly the same way if it had been anybody, any other Tory. It would have worked out exactly the same, in my opinion. I'm at my wit's end. The Tories have made me snap. I think you speak for everyone, Asim. Rees-Mogg isn't happy and says she should resign on BBC. They need to go, not bother anyone ever again. They have killed over 120,000 people. Jacob Rees-Mogg sees his chances melt away. Killing them makes you just as bad. Basic ethics. I feel your pain. They are monsters truly, but violence and threats put you so far down morally and takes you down to their level. Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, don't bring back the death penalty or capital punishment. I mean, villains will get their just desserts. They always do. We'll just have to see, like, where the road takes us. I'm afraid, good or bad. It's obviously really into. I don't know what that word says, Jimbo Jones. So yeah, there you go, folks. This has been roughly an hour's long video. So we've seen the result of the no confidence vote. Theresa May remains the leader of the Conservative Party as of today, sadly, for people on the left who would rather see a Labour government. And it's a shame that Labour get so often scapegoated for being, you know, the party that caused the global recession, for being, you know, the party that would lead us all into economic ruin, etc., etc. But that's all, you know, media propaganda, isn't it, for you? So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know I have been on streaming the same time as Captain Swiss, and I think most people have been watching that video instead. But hopefully the people that are watching that will at some point watch this video as well. So hello to all you guys watching that stream over on Swiss's channel. I've said pretty much all I wanted to say. That the Conservatives are just all of this is on them. Like all of this from the point David Cameron called the referendum to the point that we stand at today, this is 100% all on them. Is the reason why we are in this crappy, shitty unfathomable, irrevocable, damaging situation that we are in now as an international laughingstock of the whole world. Sorry about it. That's my opinion. Yeah, probably going to call it a day from here. So yeah, I'll probably be on a few of Swiss's streams at some point during the week and see if there's any more news to catch up on. Inevitably, there will be. It is Brexit after all, and also Trump as well, as you all know, triggers me to the maximum extreme. So yeah, that's pretty much all from me, folks. If you want to all head over to Captain Swiss's channel and see what he has to say on this and see what their reaction is to this result, then by all means, I'll probably go on at some point if they're still streaming. So yeah, that's all from me, folks. I'll see you all in another video and another stream soon. Cheerio!